So today we're going over beginner training tips, and yeah, I wrote them with a beginner in mind, but these really kind of go for everybody, so still pay attention. The first tip, technique over everything, especially as a beginner. This is the time, first 6 months to a year, build good movement patterns. Build a foundation for those compound movements, those complex movements, your deadlifts, your squats, your chin-ups, your presses. Build good technique now, because the heavier the weights get, if your technique is shit, the higher percent chance of injury, the worse it is for your connective tissue and your joints. Build good technique now, because just like everything else, it's going to pay dividends later when the weights are heavier. Another reason is that you focus on technique now, and when I say technique over everything, what I really mean is technique over how heavy things are, technique over weights, over reps, over sweating, over all that bullshit, because you really don't need any of that to grow as a beginner. You don't need to do that much work. It doesn't need to be that hard. So you have a unique opportunity where you don't need to lift that heavy or that often or that many reps, and you have an opportunity to focus on technique as the primary focus. All right, there's plenty of time for you to push the weight, push the reps later. Right now, it's about building a good foundational base. Be the guy who has a really great squat in his first year. Don't be the guy whose knee hurts by the end of the first year because he was pushing it like crazy. Now, the next 3 points all work together, so I might go over them a little more fluidly, but when it comes to intensity as a beginner, your workouts need to be intense enough. They don't need to be the craziest workouts you've ever done, because you don't need to do that much work to grow as a beginner, because everything is new to you, right? Everything is a novel stimulus. So think of your workouts, they need to be intense enough. And when I say enough, I mean, like we talked about, within that 0 to 5 RIR range. Now, speaking of intensity, as a beginner, you likely shouldn't go to failure almost ever. I mean, there's really no reason to go to failure as a beginner. You don't need to go to failure to grow. You don't need to be PR or maxing out and dick measuring how much can you bench, who cares? And if you go to failure as a beginner, you're going to be hella sore, right? You're not going to be able to wash your hands or wash your hair or go up the stairs, and that's not helpful. And you're also going to have a higher percent chance of technical breakdown. You're a beginner, the closer you get to failure, the higher the likelihood that you start rounding your back in a deadlift, or your knees cave in a squat, right? Or your shoulders pop up in a bench press. Because you haven't been doing this long enough, the closer you get to failure, the more that you're grinding out those reps, the higher percent chance you have of your technique breaking down. So you don't need to go to failure because you don't need to go to failure to grow, like advanced trainers might need to do sometimes, trainees. You're going to be hella sore, and there's just a really high percent chance, almost a guarantee, that if you keep going to failure, there's going to be a technical breakdown, and you're going to get hurt, or you're going to, at worst you get hurt, and at best you reinforce terrible movement patterns that stay with you for life. And the last one, obviously working upon those two, is that soreness is not a good proxy. It's not a good proxy for an effective workout. If you can't straighten your arms because you did so many curls, that doesn't mean you had a good workout. And we'll talk about how to think about soreness a little bit more in depth, but if you can build a base understanding that soreness is not a proxy for an effective workout, it's not if I'm more sore, it was more effective. If you can understand that now as a beginner, it'll help play into these two things, because you won't be seeking soreness. You won't be going so intense, close to failure, trying to get sore, because you know soreness is not a good proxy. So I hope that helps, guys. Even if you're not a beginner, this stuff still rings true. You still need good technique. You still don't need to go to failure all the time, and soreness is still not a good proxy. Hope that helps, guys. I'll see you guys in the next video.